Hi, welcome to a video that kind of wanted to do for a while. Something fun, while a bit different from something I typically do. I've heard a few times over again the past months and I guess a couple of years again about custom tutorials. And I did way back in 2020 the custom of my chocolate Bonnie, more in the style of my original, newer custom line that was more accurate to the animatronics rather than the Funko plush style. We're here. This is something I've been talking about wanting to do for a little while. I've been mentioning I wanted to make StaffBot and kind of show you pretty much how I make some customs. So that's where we are right here. We got this little mini setup. Just, I got the Glam Rocks there, and then those are going to be used for something else. We have this small setup with a bunch of my supplies, including parts from other characters that we're going to use. We have this body of Funtime Freddy that I already used for Molten Freddy's head, a couple other customs. And then I took off the legs and used those for another custom. So we'll be using that as our main body for the StaffBot. As well as this Chica head, which I, for another custom, had these spare eyes I just kind of stuck in there because I took out Chica's eyes. And we'll be removing her beak and her eyebrows and hair, all that fun stuff. And obviously we'll be making a kind of a box-ish, or where the wheels will be. We'll figure that one out as the time comes. How this is going to go is I'm pretty much just going to, for the most part, just kind of speed make through this. I'll go here and there, I'll talk about some of the stuff I'm doing. I have all the materials, just the white, blue, the glue. This orange will be used for the cheeks and a couple of the wires. This purple that'll be used for a couple of the wires because I like how it looks. Stuffing that'll probably just be used for the bottom half. Different scissors I use. I typically use these and these. These are like specific fabric cutting scissors. And then this is just like this one pair that just really works well for some reason. Yes, I use Gorilla Glue, even though that's not what this stuff is for, but we have it anyway. We have these extreme Sharpies. So you can see they last longer, which I've been starting to use for my customs now. Although again, I'm gonna need to sometimes do recoats later on for some of them. These we're not gonna need, but they're just here. We might need this, which is just a thinner black. Of course, again, we also have the black and the gray for some of the StaffBot parts. So that's pretty much all that is there. And of course, on the side, I'm going to have my iPad showing just a render of the StaffBot. Just getting in what I can do with the design, and some things I'm going to keep, some things I'm going to change. This, obviously, is the big thing we have to focus on. We'll figure out how to make that work in a plushie. I've seen a few people kind of go the security puppet style route with the box. This is what I was going to do, but maybe we'll do something else differently, maybe do a bit more rounded. We'll have to see how it goes. So, let's just get started with the process, shall we? Also, apologies that this video isn't really the best. It's the nicest. This is just pretty much what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to talk too much, but it's not like a guide. It's just kind of a tutorial of what I do for some of the customs. This being a bit more of a interesting case. And if this video does well, maybe we'll do another custom kind of speed creation, as we'll call these. So, yeah, let's just get right into it.
Hi there, Future Dave here. I'm pretty much going to be your narrator for this video because As you can see, past me is a bit caught up in the moment. This video turned out quite different than I was expecting to. Normally I was going to just be talking a little bit here and there, as you heard past me explain, about the process, but that's, I guess, changed as I just said it. Hey, things took a lot longer, and things did not go the way I was expecting with making this guy. And so here we are. Starting off by then removing all of the extra Chica features on the head by removing the eyebrows, beak, and hair, leaving those extra Roxy eyes in there as a base for where the eyes will probably go. Although later on you'll see things are a bit wonky with the head. So first off we start with making out some pieces for the body. Now the Staffbot body is a bit complicated compared to most, where it's like, oh, it's a one flat color or whatever, and they just got the legs and all that kind of stuff. Staffbot's on like these wheels. It's got these multi-sections for their arms and their torso. So I wanted to try to incorporate that within the design while also not going overly crazy. That's kind of something I do for my plushies, as you can tell. They're not always the most accurate. I try to be as accurate as I can, but I don't want to go too over the top because then it just won't look right. Some might say, I guess Nightmare Fredbear looks like that, but I think he looks fine. So, and of course, the body we're using is Funtime Freddy, and he doesn't have two normal arms. So one of his arms is a bit off-center, and that's where Bonbon normally was, so it was technically at a slight angle. Although with the finished product, you don't really notice it, and it oddly enough looks a lot more like the security puppet base, which is kind of what it was supposed to be based on. So that worked out. This is pretty much just me trimming whatever. I use typically a lot of glue when working with these projects, but you know what? It's about patience about this too, because if you use too much, it's just gonna look like a mess. So you just gotta be careful and patient. It's like, use a little bit of glue, let it dry, see how it is. If it needs to be more, then do it again. That's just how I roll with these. So that's pretty much what we're doing. We're just attaching gray for the main part of the arms, which then I will then later put on a blue ring for like the forearm, and then the white for the hands. I mean, they turned out pretty nice. Could have been a little better, but I think they worked out well for what they were supposed to be. Now, as you'll see in a second, of course I talked about earlier, how that Funtime Freddy's right arm is a bit different than his left one. So I actually had to make it a bit longer and had to add a bit of extra stuffing to try to make it even out with his left arm. And of course I took a little bit of trial and error, pardon me. As you can see, I'm moving a bit of the stuffing within the arm and then the torso. And we pretty much will then try to put on, again, the palms of the arms, which is a bit tricky on the other side. Normally, with the base of plushies, you just have that flat piece that's already there that you would put on top of it. Or for some characters where like they have their limbs cut off, like Phantom Freddy, you have to try to maneuver things around and get it around like the stuffing instead. And it's a bit difficult, but I think this one turned out okay. I definitely had to redo that for a future character you're going to see that may or may not be from Fnaf 3, but I think it actually turned out okay with their design. Now, pardon me if I don't really have as much to say during some of these parts, because, well, I already just explained things simply, and there's not really much to talk about with some of the development of these. Like for some of the Freddy ones, it's basically just, oh, it's, I guess, the custom work of a retexture. It's obviously more difficult than actually retexturing just a model, and could look horribly wrong if you don't do it right. It'll look sloppy. Like the original Fredbear, which was done in 2020. So, yeah. But if you do it right, it'll look really natural. 2 customs, also in this batch, did that perfectly. They are some of the most simple customs to this batch. But oh my god, do I love the way they look. Even their expressions are slightly different. That's also because of the base. Whatever base you use. I know some people do from scratch, which I admire. I wish I could do from scratch, but I don't have patterns and I can't sew. That's how we have all these glued customs. So I always use different bases for characters. Obviously some would be easier, like, you know, just use a Freddy for a Freddy character, or a bear character. Or using Chica for more humanoid characters. Or just stuff like that, you know. So, it just takes a lot of practice and thinking about how practical you want to be with a lot of these. Like this is made from scrap parts of Funtime Freddy and Chica and technically Roxanne as well. So, yeah, it's a bit weird. But you know what? It works out in the end. And as you can see now, these are these blue mini straps I was talking about. That go right around the arm that just pretty much act as the forearm of the actual staff bot. And you know what? They turned out pretty well. I typically don't do that for a lot of characters because I think it makes them so cluttered. But as you can see with the glare marks in the background, that's kind of what their wristbands are, but just thinner. And they actually have the, you know, the spikes, or in this case, like the little circles on them. But that's pretty much what that'll be. Next up, I think we're just going to move on to the actual like torso itself. So once the arms are done. Of course, they need a little bit of trimming because you gotta be a little bit careful because things could just look a little sloppy. Not gonna lie, some of my past customs are a bit sloppy, and I'm like, they could have been better. But you know what? This one's alright. At least for the body part. We'll get to the head. Next up, you're going to see here, I'm adding this gray to the bottom of the torso. This is going to be the starting point of where the body will go from this endo-y mini section to the bottom blue section where the wheels would be showcased. This is just kind of like draped around and took a little bit of work to get to the right size and length, and I think had to be cut a little bit more later on due to how it actually looked. And especially it changed due to how I was originally going to do things as a box. So again, like the security puppet, but due to some materials not having, you know, or enough of the certain colors, we had to change plans. And you know what? It still looks alright. But as you can see, I'm just tweaking it a lot. That is the thing with a lot of these. There's a lot of monotonous just checking around, making sure things look right from certain angles and all that kind of stuff. Because if it looks shitty, then it just really bothers you. Now, next up, you're going to see our overlaying process of how we do the torsos. Now, typically, of course, with the legs, we do, you know, the arms and the legs first. And then we do the main body. And if it's like a foxy character that sometimes has the pants, then we'll do the pants afterward. So that's how we do that sort of thing. Where this one's a bit unique, it kind of just drapes over the shoulders because it doesn't have the body or the bottom to go around as well. It doesn't even have like the neck because there's no head attached either. And it's going to go over the stuffing hole from where Funtime Freddy's head that used to be. Of course, as you'll see here, there's going to be a lot, and I mean a lot of trimming. This part took a while because there were so many throats that just looked really bad. And I still think it looks a little wonky on him. Like the arms seem too short because of how the torso is a bit wide. The white part, at least. But, I mean, that's the thing. When you're looking at it from one way, it will look nice, but then if you have to tilt it in another way, it'll look completely different, and you'll start to notice all these little, like, ridges, as you'll see. Like, they look choppy. That's, like, the best word to describe it. You don't want it to look choppy, because then you can see it's, makeshift or whatever. That's the thing with some of the characters. Like, they're very cobbled together with some of the parts. Especially like Rockstar Bonnie and some of those early customs. Where you can see on the backs and stuff that, like, technically they're like a puzzle put together. And with some of them, it actually looks fine. For the staff bot, it's a little strange. And some characters like Fredbear, it's just, it's okay, but it's not the best. Might remake him in the future, but we'll have to see. Now we're going to move on to the most difficult part of this whole project. The head. Oh my god. His head turned out very, very different. You know, I just mentioned how, again, it looked very cobbled in the back. This part perplexed me for maybe 30 minutes. I'm figuring out what to do. So much so, I had frustrations. I had to cut the camera and then just do the majority of his head off camera because it just took so much time and tedious patchwork on the back to make it look right. This one was definitely very rough. Out of all the tutorials to show for like the first one, this one is not the best choice. Did not turn out how I expected. But again, and I thought when I was looking at it at first, it's like, oh my god, that the face still, like the Chica face, was still very noticeable underneath the white. As you can see there, it's like, oh my god. But then later on, it becomes less noticeable. And as you'll see here, I kind of like cut them in pieces. I just kind of stick typically a big piece on, or typically it's like a Freddy face or something like that, but this is the Chica face pattern, so it's the circular one, which is a bit more difficult for me. So you can just kind of go around, cut some parts so they'll fit together, and you cut off some of the access stuff, and try to make things as smooth as possible. It's not the best, but I need to just work on, again, doing patterns, and see if that will be better. This is just a lot of just monotonous work. So let's just cut to how it looks. That's also another problem with this video. I can't see the camera. I'm just really focusing and hoping, I'm getting all this on camera. Well, it's not the best. But as you can see, we've got closer now. The head is fully covered in white. We've got the blue patch on the head, which also took another couple tries. And it looks fine in the front. A little wonky on the sides, and it's a bit too much on the back. Also off camera, I cut all the parts for the eyes, these two big white ovals, along with the two small black ones, as well as the side kind of like ear pieces, which also take a bit of trimming, and then there's the cheeks. I thought it's the same thing with some of the parts. Just like you have to make sure things don't look very rigid on the body, you also have to make sure you trim them to the right size. I've had that a couple of times with the arms and legs. I typically just kind of go around them and just put like a big piece of felt there, as you saw, and then just kind of trim it up so it matches the right size I'm trying to go for, as well as going for some of this extra stuff with the different, like, circular pieces. Like, the main pieces of the ends of the arms and legs, as well as, like, for the eyes, like irises and all that kind of stuff. Or even cheeks, like for the toy characters, all that kind of stuff. So I really just try to take a lot of time and make sure things look right compared to size. And that is why I always have models or visuals right next to me on the iPad, so I'm looking back and forth from a couple references to see what would look the best. And then for certain characters, like some other ones you'll see in the future, I did look at some behind models to see what they would look like. I believe Scrap Trap was one of those as well, how I had to look behind to see what he looked like. It was a bit different than I remembered. And there's a few other characters down the line where I'm like, oh wait, they actually have a backside. Where some characters I just make it up, just to make it look nice. And for the most part it turns out well. But back to here, the head is almost done. It pretty much just will need the lines, which we'll add on later, that just kind of go around the face. But, ow! And there also are these tear tracks on their face, which these turn out even. You can tell. I don't know why I didn't redo them, but I didn't. And so they're a little wonky, but I've begun not to notice it that much. And definitely in the future, when I do make MapBot, I'm definitely going to fix all of these problems. And that was also a big thing I wanted to talk about here. MapBot wasn't originally going to be a separate plush. He was actually just going to be a bunch of cosmetics added onto this one. While this design has the white chest, I was going to have the yellow one be like a vest with Velcro that could be attached, along with a pair of glasses, his hat, as well as his little belt thing where he'll keep his maps. But, just looking after this, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But it'll also teach me, hey, what I should do for the future. And MapBot might be quite different than this guy. In improvement, at least. So, we'll have to see how that goes in the future. Also, don't mind the cute little cat bee, that was just there as a little funny joke. The head is now attached to the body, which took a bit of squeezing to do, and a lot of extra glue. But you're starting to see things are really coming together from a bunch of cobbled parts. And you'll see this long cut because it got so dark out that things are a bit different. You'll see now as well as the spin that there is the lines across the face and the chest where they should be, like these kind of separations. Which typically I will notice for my plushies, I don't do faceplates because of Funko. Funko didn't do the faceplates, except for the weird thing on Baby's face, but whatever. So I don't do the faceplates on mine, like you'll see for other characters. It's like eventually if I do Biddy Bab or whatever, like she's not gonna have faceplates on her. But this guy was a bit of an exception, that's just a core part of his design thing that just doesn't look right without. Where the Funtime ones, it's like, yeah, they could look fine without them. And these buttons, oh my goodness, these buttons took a lot of tweaking and they still look a little off. Like one's a bit more circular, the other's a bit more ovular, and the third one's like kind of oval. Oh my god. Typically I do them like line, that they're like all the same shape. Or close to the same shape. That's how I do a bunch of the spikes on the Glamrock's different little wristbands. But for this one, I just didn't. This project was very frustrating. Did not turn out well. With multiple reasons. First with the head, then with the lower section of the body. Yes. And then with that, as you can see past me, was not that happy about the results either. Here we're finally moving on to the bottom of the body, where we're going to start by putting a bunch of glue around the gray area, and then we're going to have this blue go around, which there was a whole like 20 minutes that was cut from the footage that was actually recorded of me going upstairs and looking for this exact color of blue, which we did not have. We have like 2 or 3 other shades that are slightly different, like that we use for Toy Bonnie or some of the other characters like DJ Music Man. But oh my god, we did not have this one specific shade of blue that was like a mix of this light blue and kind of periwinkle. I don't understand. So we used what we had left, and that's how this little round part came to be. Instead of more square, it'd be a little bit more similar to, I guess, Balloon Boy when you think about it. And of course, by this, he'd have to be a bit taller than the rest, which was pretty expected with such a very unique design. Now you'll notice as I was trying to stuff the bottom, I noticed something isn't going to fit right. The stuffing isn't going to go how I imagine it to because of the Funtime Freddy bottom still being attached. So after this, I decided, hey, it's better off just to remove it and then just have a big stream of stuffing going through the whole area. And that wasn't really caught on camera as much, but you'll see, yeah, we decided then to just start and cut out that whole piece so we have access to the whole body as it's not being separated as just one long shape. And due to that decision, it actually worked. The stuffing went into the right place. And then we had to add in the last part to the bottom, which will be this little bag of beans that would be used to keep him held up, just like with Shattered Monty, who needed a bit of support. Because obviously this guy is going to be a bit top heavy due to his head, and its body not as much. And definitely, as you can see here, needed a lot of tweaking because it didn't fit in right at first, and probably will need a little tweaking afterward. Same thing with Shattered Monty, he needed a bit more updates after the video, and still technically does. But with Stuffbot here, I think his beanbags turned out quite well. I don't really use them typically because most plushies sit fine, but there's some like Moondrop that have a little bit of an issue. And this other guy I just finished, who you'll see probably pretty soon, he had a bit of trouble sitting. And typically when I do that, I try to smooth out the legs and the head and stuff to try and, form it to the sitting position if it's having a bit of a problem. And I guess if that won't work, I'll learn to probably buy these extra bags of beans that I can stick in maybe through the back or something. Before I fully maybe patch up a character, I'll stick that in there. Burn Trap is probably one of the other ones who could probably use some beans to make him sit better. He definitely has a bit of issues sitting. The next bit was also technically done off camera because I was a bit confused on how it would work. And that will be the final piece of this guy. His wheels. Now, his wheels were going to be filled with plush. So they weren't going to be these flat little things on the sides. They were going to be 3D, and I wanted them to look right. So, off camera, I kind of made these pieces and tried to get them to fit right. Around with just these thin, long pieces that would go for the middle, as along with these 2 black ovals or circles that would be for the main sides of the wheels, along with later adding the gray parts for the outer side of the wheel. Now, they are a little wonky with how the stuffing is because they're so small and cobbled together, but overall I think they turn out well, and they stick quite nice to the body. And because they're so light, they don't add any weight to the bottom. They just kind of sit there as a little accessory on the sides. This is the part where we're really nearing the end here. The only thing that needs to be done after this was adding the little wires underneath his arms, which were kind of just an extra detail, but it was something fun that I thought, hey, let's keep that from the original design. Now, I'm just saying this in the future, if you guys want to see a bit more of an orthodox, customization of one of these characters, let me know. Because I have wanted to do these tutorials before, again, like with the Choco Pony a couple years ago with the older plush style. But if you guys want to see one of these, that's a bit more, simple and less like of a mess than Staffbot here, then please let me know. I do have a few characters that you could probably suggest in mind. I'll make a poll if you guys do want to see this of a few characters that I could do that demonstrate this. So, let's say, put that down in the comments if you do want to see another one of these. But probably, a bit better than just this big cobbled together mess where I'll actually, bit things better with the camera, maybe go things a bit step by step, and really show you how things go in a nice, smooth process. Rather than this video that just took so long that it got dark out. Although, again, it gets dark around 5 where I live right now, so that didn't really help. Now, as for those wires I was talking about, they're just these really thin strips that were cut in half that will go right underneath the arms in the shades of this dark orange color and this purple color. It goes a bit more bluish purple in the actual model, but this is the closest thing I got and it looked really nice. Yeah, I can't say no to an orange and purple combo. You know me. These simply just kind of went under the arm and kind of used, a bit of gravity to work with how they would bend and form a little loop right underneath the arms. Now, unfortunately, me being an idiot, didn't see the camera, so you barely got to see this actual process being done, but as you can see, there's one of the purple wires. Now, I'm not really going to talk through much of this because, well, it's pretty simple. However, you will notice that the body actually has a bit of detail added on to it. For the midsection, it has the kind of, typical robotic lines going across it, along with this mini point in the middle that kind of shows this weird section where it kind of splits off from the normal model, as well as a bit of the detailing for the bottom, which are just added on off camera. Typically just like the Funko printing equivalent. It's just that Sharpie. But hey, it works. I'm probably just going to cut a little bit of this out just to shorten this because it's just the same thing you're seeing before. And now we're adding our final touches, and that's pretty much it for this fella. I think he probably took around 2 to 2.5 hours. Yeah. And here we have the final result. He's not perfect by a long shot, but you know what? He does what he needs to do, also being quite simple, for the character design at least. Yeah, he could have been a bit better, but whatever. He does the job right. And as you'll see that he can sit on his own, and he's a bit taller than the others, of course it's already explained. But hopefully Mapbot will be a bit of a step up from this guy. He's still not perfect, not by far. Oh my goodness, as you can see with the back of the head. Ugh. Ah, well. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took quite a long time to do, and you know what? Wasn't even the best, but you know what? This guy, he's alright. And as you'll see, he's far from the last Security Breach custom. Gotta go, Dave Dorinko. I'll see you guys next time.